Hello, my friends, my lovelies, and all wonderful people in between. This is a weird one to start on if you're just starting on this channel, so let's... I mean... Okay. There's a lot. You saw the title. There's a lot going on here. So let me just start with how the fuck this video came to be. So, earlier today, our wonderful friend Bubs sends us this message. He and Sango and I are in this little group together, so we talk about things, send weird links to each other, shit like that. So he sends me a message, and he's like, I think I just found something for your channel. Bubs usually finds some amazingly insane things, so I'm excited. I'm like, please, continue. What did you find? He's like, I'm going to send you a link. And I don't know how true this is. I'm going to leave that up to you. But this, I think, is video worthy. And today's subject came from that link. Today's subject, if you read the link, or not the link, but if you read the title of this video and you're still confused, the subject is birds aren't real. Oh yeah. We're going into conspiracy theorist territory. Now, before I get into this, before I start reading it, I haven't read any of it. Bubs has read it, said the whole time he was reading it he was dying. I didn't read it. I wanted to save reading it till I'm here, till I'm with you guys, because that's the best way I find to approach videos like this, is to read them with my friends. And you guys are my friends. So... This is the website. This is the website we're going to start with. This is a website. This fucking website. This is a website that honestly looks like it was made in some sort of like cheap website maker program, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was. But the website, if you wanna pull that up right now. You wanna do that, and read along with your friend Moonhorse. You can just go pull up your browser. I know you got one. You're listening to this. Just open a tab. Pull open another tab. Type in birdsaren'treal.com. There's no apostrophe after the T. That doesn't work in the URL. I'll give you a second. Alright. You should be looking at the home page, and you see what I'm talking about. We're going to skip past this video archive. There's a lot of activism gear. I gotta be honest with you, I'm kind of sad that it's sold out, because I really want an I Am a Lie t-shirt. Okay, we scrolled all the way down. We passed the merch. History speaks for itself. We needed a way to keep an eye on the American citizens without them knowing. It was imperative. For their own safety, of course. We hired only the best. It took years. We designed, built, tested, failed. We persisted. Eventually, over decades, we had it. A fleet of covert technological surveillance devices, unlike anything the world had ever seen. We called them birds. Richard Nixon, 1978. Take action. Recent surveys revealed that 99.5% of the general public still believe in birds. I know, I was shocked too. They said it is our duty as bird truthers to remove the blinders from their eyes and welcome them into the light of truth. Together, we can shift society's perception of what flies above us. Okay. Alright. We're going to go into the history. But before I read the history, this is the reason why I'm feeling like, I'm feeling like this can't be real, right? This can't be real. This has got to be some kind of joke, like an elaborate prank. It's someone fucking with people, right? Flat earthers also exist, kids. That is also a thing. There's... Oh, what the fuck is wrong with my internet? Why are you being so slow? Here we go. Alright, let's go ahead and do this. I'm going to open this in a new tab because my internet sucks, and we'll just load that page while we're reading this. So we moved on to the page, the history. How? Robot bird... This fucking JFK, the turkey. Oh my god, that fucking sign is made in like MS Paint. Okay. Warning. Disturbing content. The only way to properly explain is with words. Buckle up. That's on the page, by the way. I know I say that, that's on the page. It is imperative that we discuss the methods that the government used to extinguish over 12 billion birds between 1959 and 1971. If we are to make disciples of the birds aren't real movement, we must equip each and every person with the knowledge of what truly happened in this saga of insanity and government corruption. Here are the facts and eyewitness accounts of various key elements that occurred within our nation that completely destroyed every man, woman, and child bird in existence. All the birds are gone, y'all. All of them. All of them. All of them. They all gone. Alan Welsh Dulles. Dulles? Anyway. You may not be familiar with this disgraceful human, but he was the director of Central Intelligence Agency from 1953 to 1961. Upon the government writing the plan to slowly kill off the birds, it was his responsibility to make it a reality. He was given the task of relocating $65 billion of public health funds towards the forced extinction. On May 6, 1955, he met with an unidentified man from the Boeing Airplane Corporation company and ordered 120 B-52 bombers. Dulles knew that Dulles knew that if his government was to go undetected, he had to keep these aircraft out of sight from the American public. He was under strict orders not to leave a trace of his actions. So he devised a plan to construct the aircraft in Nevada's Area 51. This way, the citizens of Seattle, Washington, where Boeing was headquarters, wouldn't be able to claim that the bombers had been built nearby if the government was exposed. 23 men from within the Boeing engineering department traveled to Area 51 in the back of an old school bus that they purchased from a salvage yard in Moquito, Washington. They were seen by a few individuals bringing couches and rugs into the bus and were also heard discussing, and I quote, "Really cool playlist for the trip. This can't be real. This can't be real." Clearly, the Boeing engineers didn't get the memo from Dulles about remaining undetected. It actually painted a Area 51 or bust on both sides of the bus. This has got to be fake. Somebody's fucking with people. Whenever they would stop for gas, they would set up a makeshift campsite in the parking lot and sing songs with such titles as "I Left My Honey for Area 51" and "Let's Kill All the Birds." They attracted a lot of attention, and the locals of a town in Idaho claimed that the men would reveal in intimate details about what they were doing. Clearly, they were complete idiots. But their idiocy is one of the hardest pieces of evidence on how the government killed all the birds, while the 22 men made it to Nevada. I thought it was 23. Oh, while of the 22 men made it to Nevada, one man did not. Neil Ford was the only engineer that lived to tell the story. As he was left in a Waffle House bathroom because the others claimed he had to pee too many times and he was ruining the vibe on the road trip. Okay. Neil spoke with one of the founding members of the Birds Aren't Real movement shortly before his death in 1994. He spoke about the way in which Dooley searched for the engineers who didn't have families. That way, they'd be able to disappear from the map when the project was complete and nobody would notice. The disturbing reality is a far cry from the way in which many people view the 1950s, and proves that our government has been ruthless in its effort to rid our nation of its peace and prosperity. Upon making it to Area 51, the 22 remaining engineers were tasked with designing the new version of the B-52s, the B-52B. The B stands for Bird or Barack. And it was to be a brand new model of the B-52 that had a 450-gallon water tank in the place of the bomb compartments. The water tanks were hard to design, and one of the engineers almost gave up. But Dooley's hit him over the head with a 40-pound wrench and said it was to knock some sense into him. This unintentionally put the man into a coma, to which he never awoke. Scared out of their minds, the remaining 21 engineers vowed to finish the design of the airplane so they could leave Area 51 for good. This was to be a faulty dream, however, as none of them were ever seen again. We only know this information because 12 pallets of classified documents were stolen from a warehouse by one of our Birds Aren't Real patriots. But we'll get to that in the next installment, December of 2018. Once the water tanks were fitted into each bomber, a complete system of radar and tracking technology was installed into the nose of the aircraft. This technology was extremely advanced for its time, and it was used by the crew to track large flocks of birds from distances of 200 miles away. Once the radar was fitted with 5 coats of jet black matte paint was sprayed onto every surface of the plane. This was done to camouflage the aircraft against the night sky, so they could go undetected from the ground. Not only was the paint used to hide the bombers, but each external strobe, beacon, and landing light was removed. Not a single light emitted from the plane. The Pratt & Whitney JT-3D engines were fitted with noise reduction pads that enabled the aircraft to fly completely silent from altitudes of 3,000 feet or higher. Whew, I don't know why I'm having so much trouble reading this. Probably because it's completely fucking absurd. It took 2 years to build the 120 bombers, and once they were finished, the Boeing engineers were told that they were free to go home. However, they were incepted 30 minutes into their road trip back to Washington, put in the back of an armored troop transport vehicle. The men were sent to the front line in Vietnam, which Dooley's hoped would seal their fate. Each of the engineers actually survived for 3 weeks in intense combat, and were kidnapped by the Viet Cong only after they ran out of ammunition. They were never heard from again. Now you may be wondering, how were the birds actually killed? What method was used to accomplish this act of mass murder? Good question. The water tanks of the bombers were fitted with a specially formulated bird poison. Once consumed, would give the bird a virus that could be passed on to other birds. This poison was sprayed from an altitude of 8,000 feet and would completely dissolve before it hit the ground, which meant that only birds would be affected by its terror. Once a single drop of the poison struck a bird's feather, the virus would take hold through the fibers and make its way into the bloodstream. The virus would then affect the bone structure in a way that total decomposition of the birds would take place within 24 hours. On June 14th, 1959, the CIA secretly began Water the Country. Within the next 6 years, 72% of the bird population was wiped out. During this nightmare event, the first few bird prototypes were released by the 100,000. The term drone was not used at this time, and instead they were referred to as robot birds. In a stolen transcript from an ex-CIA deputy, she says, "Yeah, the higher-ups were so annoyed that birds had been dropping fecal matter on their car windows, they vowed to wipe out every single one of the flying feathered creatures in North America." That's all it took, kids. That's all it took. As we learned in the previous chapter, this was just one of the reasons the government came up with to eliminate the birds. Let it be known, the CIA originally were the only ones responsible for this atrocity, as the president had no idea that this was taking place. The CIA did not intend for anyone but select departments to find out what was going on. Even the pilots of the bombers were unaware what they were doing. The chief commanding officer of Water the Country, told them that they were watering the grass of the entire country To this day, it's highly unlikely the pilots knew that they assisted in the largest mass murder in world history. If any of the original bomber pilots in Operation Water the Country are reading this, hear me closely. We do not blame you for the sins of your superiors. While you did kill billions of helpless birds, you did not know what you were doing. You do not have to remain in hiding. Join the movement, and together we can fight the government. As I said a few paragraphs ago, the president was unaware of what was going on until October 3rd, 1963, when a top CIA official was overheard speaking about the operation over a tapped phone. John F. Kennedy was president at this time and had tapped the phone of an Alvin B. Cleaver, International Communications Director for the CIA. Kennedy believed that Cleaver was stealing his ham sandwich from the White House kitchen and vowed to catch him speaking about it over the phone. Instead, he heard a highly sensitive conversation that Cleaver was having with Dulles. In it, Cleaver said, "Yeah, Alan, I stole John's lunch again. He doesn't even know. I'm going to keep stealing it until he launches a full investigation. Then I'm going to plant a hidden camera and catch his reaction and dump all that stolen sandwiches on his desk at one time. I'm going to call the show, You've Been Cleaver." Dulles responded, "Alvin, that's going to be so funny. We'll have to play that clip at the White House Correspondence Center. By the way, how'd that bird slaughter thing go? How many birds we killed so far?" We killed about 1.1 billion so far, and the best thing is, the robot birds we released in their place have done such a good job that nobody suspects a thing. Kennedy heard this conversation over the tapped phone and immediately called both into the Oval Office. He demanded to know what they were discussing. They confessed what was taking place in the American sky late at night, and he was appalled. He told them to stop this operation at once or he'd fire them. They both explained to Kennedy why the birds needed to be exterminated and asked him if they could show Kennedy a prototype of one of their birds before he made any decisions on whether or not to end Operation Water the Country. On October 25th, 1963, Kennedy is shown a prototype of the Turkey X-500. Oh my god. A robot specialized in killing larger birds like eagles and falcons. It's a murder turkey. The robot displayed its surveillance skills as well as its ability to find and track escaped criminals. As we learned from Chapter 1, this was one of the things that drove Eisenhower to approve the project. Kennedy was impressed with what he was shown, but continued to demand the immediate shutdown of the operation. And less than a month later, he was dead. Now, I'm not saying these events are correlated, but I am. JFK was murdered by the CIA because he was against the mass murder of every feathered flying creature in the United States. Oh my god. He was to be the first and only president to stand against the murder of the birds. From Lyndon Johnson to Donald Trump, every president we've had has turned a blind eye to the atrocities that began in 1959. After Kennedy was killed, the CIA started rigging elections. They would only allow candidates who were anti-bird and pro-citizen surveillance to win the presidency. Oh my god. By now you must be shaking with fear. I'm doing something. The thought of your government doing these things is too much for you to handle. Can it really be true? Could the government have killed billions of birds and replaced them with robots? Yes, they did. But don't feel alone. At any point during the reading of this book, you are free to email our counseling department and we will walk you through the steps to mentally overcome this nightmare. I personally had to deal with this reality on my own decades ago. Now I'm giving you a service that I wish had been available to me at the time of my discovery. If you're currently experiencing episodes of excessive perspiration and muscle spasms because of what you've heard, do not read Chapter 3 yet. If the first few chapters shocked you, Chapter 3 will bring you to your knees. Buckle up. The nightmare is just beginning. That's on here. I didn't make that up. Oh my god, this picture. This is the picture that's going to cover the entire fucking... Yeah, this is the picture I'm going to use. Fucking bird. The picture you're seeing currently, right now, the one that's covering this entire video, it's this one. This is the one I'm looking at. I'm just like, what the fuck? Chapter 2. Anonymous Leader. It was a sunny, warm day in September of 2003. I'd just woken up from my first day of 3rd grade. Mother was calling my name through the wooden door that led to my bedroom as she picked up toys out of the hallway floor. I was putting on my shorts very quickly as I was about to miss the bus. Hastily, I ate a small bowl of cereal and sprinted out to the garage, ducking under the door as it groaned upwards. Running at full speed, I reached the bus stop only to see it driving down the street, leaving behind a trail of toxic diesel fumes. I sat on the ground, panted for air, thinking of what my mother was going to think. I missed the bus. I couldn't believe it. And on my first day, what a nightmare. While sitting on the warm grass trying to think of an excuse, I noticed a medium-sized blackbird sitting atop the mailbox across the street. As the sound of my bus faded into white noise, my quite quaint neighborhood, I noticed that the bird was staring directly at me. I stared at it for a few seconds and then lost interest. I still had to think of how I was going to tell my mother. Then something happened. The bird perked up and flew directly onto the patch of grass in front of my feet. It stared at me and noticed it was making a very quiet hum, like an old computer fan. I arched my back to get a better look and fully expected it to fly away. Instead, it came closer, very slowly. I extended my arm, hoping that it would know to jump into my hand. It stared at me so intently, I was shocked at how it was still being. How could a living creature be so incredibly motionless? It wasn't even breathing, it seemed. And all of a sudden, it took one jump and landed in my hand. My heart rate increased as I sat on the grass with a decently large blackbird perched on my palm. At this point, I could hear the gentle mechanical hum even clearer now. I looked at its back, noticing that there was writing on it. I couldn't read very well at the time, and the numbers were small, but regardless, it was there. As I sat pondering what kind of creature was in my possession, it opened its mouth and did something I'll never forget. It spit out a small bag. The bag was no bigger than a box of matches, and was tied to the top with a rubber band. Immediately after completing this action, it lifted its head and flew out of my hand into a nearby tree, leaving me with the bag. Even at my young age, I wondered why this bag was dry as a bone. Why wasn't something that regurgitated out of a living creature slick and wet? I pondered this as I stood up slowly and walked home, holding the bag close to my face so I could see what was inside. When I reached home, I noticed my mother was gone. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened the bag, dumping out a white powdery substance on the surface of the table. I was thoroughly confused and convinced that I was in some sort of dream. I hit myself on the head with a plate to wake myself up. The plate shattered over my head, and the remains fell on the table on the floor below. This has got to be some kind of fucking joke. I realized that this was not a dream by any means. I went to take a shower, washing the shards of glass out of my hair and putting a Band-Aid on my cut, bruised head. And when I almost finished, I heard my mother into the house. She walked in the kitchen, shrieked so loud that it sent our family dog into cardiac arrest. As our dog lay on the ground motionless, I walked out of the bathroom and began to explain what happened. I tried to explain that I missed the bus, and the bird gave me the substance that was currently spilled on the kitchen table. And thinking I was in a dream, I smashed a plate over my head. She looked closely at the substance and screamed even louder than before and began accusing me of doing drugs. I didn't know what she was talking about, and I started crying. Mother pushed me into the back of the family van and drove me to a rehabilitation center about 4 miles from our house. Upon learning that you weren't allowed to send a 3rd grader to rehab, she brought me back into the van and we sat in the parking lot. She stared dead ahead and began quietly to ask where I acquired the bag, which turned out to be cocaine. A government robot bird gave me cocaine. I explained to her that a bird gave it to me. This ended up making her think I was on drugs in the exact moment. She told me that I was not allowed to go to school anymore, thus homeschooling me. To this day, I look at this moment as the definitive event that totally changed the course of my life. Ever since, I have dedicated my life to finding out what kind of creature gave me a bag of drugs and to find out why. I would later learn from others that within the birds aren't real movement, that the bird was trying to get me hooked on drugs. By doing so, I would be arrested and labeled a menace to society. This method is a form of population control that the government still uses to this day, as no one who's addicted to drugs directly attributes that to their own folly. Instead, when they think back to the first event that introduced them to narcotics, most often it's a bird to blame. The crows gave me crack. During the initial years following my abdication from young, innocent child to exposed, maturing teenager, I focused my research not on how, but what. What was that black bird robot that gave me a bag of drugs? What was its purpose? At first, I tried to capture one of my own so I could examine and discover what I truly dealt with all those years ago. I spent years of my life, from 2009 to 2012, asking others about their experience with birds, trying to find something that would fuel my belief that there were birds flying around that weren't birds at all. I didn't uncover anything of value. That is, until November of 2012. It was a cold, cloudy day when I heard a knock on the door of my house. I opened it to find a tall man wearing a black turtleneck and a tan trench coat. He asked if he could come inside, and that it was very important. Normally, not inclined to let a complete stranger enter my home, I allowed it. My mother was at work. Thought it best to hear what was so urgent, and I believed that something was extremely wrong, given the tone of his voice. He walked into my living room, reached his long arms to lower the blinds, and looked out over my quiet neighborhood. As he did so, my heart began to race. He sat down on the edge of our coffee table and asked me if I could have a seat. He took off his hat and began to question why I had been inquiring about the legitimacy of birds. Somehow, he heard that I was the local weirdo who spent all his time asking about whether anyone else had encountered a robot bird. I explained to him what happened all those years ago in 2003. He didn't act surprised. When I finished, he stood up and said, "Peter, you are not crazy. You're the sanest person in this entire town. That bird you encountered was in fact a drone. Not only was that bird a drone, but every other bird you see perched on a limb, flying around, waddling for a drink at the local pond, is also a drone." As my eyes widened, my heartbeat sped up. He explained that he was a former security guard at a warehouse in the outskirts of Washington, D.C. This warehouse was kept a pallet of information that accidentally toppled over one morning when a forklift hit it from the upper shelf in one of the more off-limits areas. While he began scooping up the scattered files, he couldn't help but read some of the information and noticed that there was something extremely suspicious about the birds. He took quick photos of random documents for later analysis and explained to me that there was a massive, government-wide deception that had been perpetrated on the American people. Birds, in fact, were drones. Birds aren't real. They haven't been for decades, and in 2001, the last real bird died in a closed ceremony on an island off the coast of Virginia. To be continued. So that's the history. Let's look at who are we? The Bird Brigade. Meet the Brigade. All across this wretched country, there are leaders. Those who have chosen to lead, to impart the knowledge of this travesty to every man, woman, and child. They will not rest, and can't, even if they wanted to, as there are drones on top of their house making loud noises. The bird nightmare makes the Illuminati and JFK conspiracies look like a toddler playing in the Burger King play place. It's not over yet. The fight has just begun. Join us as the gang solves the bird crisis. They have Instagram pages for every fucking state. Oh my god. Oh, wait. Hold on. I gotta pull this one open in a tab. I gotta look at some of these. I found one for New Orleans. But apparently I'm not going to be able to look at it because my internet is being shit tonight and won't let me connect to anything. Okay. Fuck it. Whatever. It's Instagram. I can't even share the photos to you. They won't let me do that because it's Instagram. Birds aren't real. I gotta see the fucking picture again. Where is it? Not that one. Not Robo Turkey 5000. That one. Eyes in the sky. Oh god, I hope this is some kind of elaborate troll. I really want this to be like a joke. I honestly hope there aren't real people in this world who think that birds are government surveillance drones. There are so many questions that this doesn't answer. Like, all of it. Just all of it. This started in the 50s with robot birds. Because we had that technology. You know, in the 50s, when everybody had fidget spinners and hoverboards and, you know, there were just robots everywhere. Drones were the thing, you know? Drones were the thing. What the actual fuck did I just read? God damn it, Bubs, I blame you for this. Oh my god. Government surveillance birds. My favorite part is the drugs. Birds tried to get me hooked on drugs. Oh my god. This shit is fucking killing me. This was fucking magical, you guys. I don't even know what to classify this as. I don't know what to put this. I need like a whole another section of Moonhorse videos dedicated to just crazy things. Crazier things. I mean, what the fuck is this? Holy shit. Oh my god. Well, I'm gonna end this video here, because I can't. I fucking can't. Oh god. If you enjoyed this, like, comment, and subscribe. Also, I have a Patreon if you'd like to donate $1, but don't look out the window because the government birds are going to give you cocaine. Oh my god. I love you all. Goodbye.